Welcome to Clarkston Lighthouse Guidance. I'm Chandler Fleming, the owner and chief therapist at Clarkston Lighthouse Counseling.
And I'm Victoria Fleming, and I am owner and therapist at Clarkston Lighthouse Counseling also, but welcome to Clarkston Lighthouse Guidance. We're so glad to have you here. And today we're going to talk about marriage matters.
Isn't that cool? I came up with that title.
You did.
It's like it matters, like things that are mattering about marriage, and then
it matters.
It matters. It's important.
Yeah, it is.
I thought it was pretty like, trendy and exciting.
Hip, okay.
Yeah,
and what we're looking at is the fact that it does require attention.
And that always blows me away. The number of people I know who think that just love happens, that marriage should be easy, and that if, just it'll happen, it'll be organic, it'll happen naturally.
And at first, when you first fall in love, you do feel that way.
Or
it does feel organic. It does feel like you can do nothing wrong. Yeah. Absolutely nothing wrong, and it does. It feels almost like the two of you could go through anything, and then it's really hard when you finally hit that kind of impasse, and it's like, this person does have morning breath, and this person does have irritating habits, and what used to be so endearing is now incredibly frustrating.
Right. It wasn't till the 28th year of our marriage that I discovered some of these things.
Oh, really?
So the first 28 years were good. Yeah.
Mine may have been 2.8 years, but that's okay. No. But no, it is. It's super important. And it was funny today, even as I was wearing my Fitbit Blaze, I thought how often we'll take so many things in our lives and give it such maintenance. Our cars, our houses, our physical well-being. I can know how many beats per minute that my heart is going, and I give that a lot of attention. But when it comes to the relationships, when it comes to my marriage, I may not be giving it the level of attention that it needs. And so today, that's very much what we want to focus on. And we do have that list, where we're looking at, that we'll change our oil, we'll polish our furniture, we'll paint our rooms because we see that they get beat up. Continuing education.
Yeah, I'm required in order to keep my license to have a certain amount of continuing education. But some people think that they already know what they need to know about their mate or about their relationship. It's kind of a funny story, but I love to tell the chicken wing story, that when we had double income and no kids, we used to go out to eat, and it was like kind of a trendy thing, we try the wings. Well, I like the drummy pieces. I think they have more meat. But to be fair, we were kind of splitting them up, and it wasn't until probably 5 or 6 years of marriage that we recognized that, I like the drummy, she likes the second piece. And I would never have known if we didn't ask. So our mates can be a mystery to us and something that we need to explore, but we need to stay current on how to be happily married.
So what we need to do is we need to gather the data.
We need to be
assessing, just as I may look at and be like, oh, I've gotten this many steps and my goal is to get 8,500 a day, I'm missing this number. I need to be willing to take a look at my relationship with you.
Right.
And to be kind of looking at, how are we doing? Are we doing some of the things we used to do that made it really good? What's going on? And so one of those areas are the 5 love languages. Gary Smalley has written just an excellent book, a book that lots of people have read, highly recommended, and he looks at the 5 primary love languages. And so we're looking at verbal affirmation, quality time, acts of service, gifts, and physical touch are those 5 primary languages, and we just want to touch on each of those some.
Right. So verbal affirmation is just really words. Many people experience love when they hear things like "you're great," "you're awesome." Other people don't. I'm not a big verbal affirmation person, but my wife is.
Of course and we find that very often, that what happens is you're married to someone. I think verbal affirmation is probably on the top of my list and probably wouldn't make your list at all.
Well, I don't know if it does. I like to hear legitimate praise and things like that, but it's really not what makes me feel most loved. Probably quality time and physical touch would be mine. But one of the ways that you determine what is your love language is sometimes not the presence, but the absence. So if it's not around or if it's negative, so are you more sensitive to criticism? People who tend to be verbal affirmation people tend to be much more sensitive to criticism.
And so what happens is very often I'm loving him in my primary love language. I'm loving him with words. Oh, sweetheart, I think you're wonderful. Oh, I love you so much. And he may be loving me in his love language, and then we may feel like we're ships passing, and neither one of us are necessarily feeling incredibly loved. And so it's important to first identify, there's usually a top and a second, and kind of identify what are mine. I'm going to know what mine are because it's how I'm loving other people. It's what I'm doing. I'm giving people words of affirmation, and I love, that quality time with people. So, and then the same thing for him. He's going to take a look at how am I loving, what am I doing, and that's important. So step one would be identify.
Yeah, step one would definitely be identify. It's interesting the number of clients that I give the assignment to engage in loving behavior 8 minutes a week.
Oh.
And a lot of them fail. A lot of them have a very, very difficult time for 8 minutes. And they'll say, like, what could be some things? Well, your wife's a verbal affirmation person. Take 20 seconds and send her a text message. Or quality time's hard to do in 8 minutes, but it's really when you're present, to be very present, to sit down with them, ask them about their day, join with them, sit next to them. Acts of service, you find something special. And sometimes it's picking up it's picking up a dirty dish or something to help somebody out.
And what's fascinating is that this love languages actually crosses over, like I know your mom, acts of service. So when we visit your mom, I'm always mindful, what are those things that I can be doing to show her love by doing for her? So it's important. Take a look. My guess is when you're first in the relationship, we're doing those things because I'll notice, oh, he loves that quality time, and I'm just naturally doing that. But then we get into the mundane, we get into the rut of life, and those things can sometimes, and so that's important data to be collecting, is what is my love language, what is my my partner's love language, and are we loving each other? Even 8 minutes, did you say a day or
a week?
A week.
Some people cannot come up with 8 minutes a week.
8 minutes a week.
And that's part of the reason why I said write it down, is oftentimes when we don't analyze and we don't collect the data, I'm always saying loving things. We spend plenty of quality time, but if you really try to look at what did the last week look like, what happened in the last 7 days, how much time did you really spend together, it's important, and you get much more meaningful data.
And it's nowhere near as much as you thought. I mean, it's a lot like oil changes. People are doing so much better now that there's a sticker in the windshield that I keep seeing that reminds me. I almost wish we could do a love meter watch that I could be entering. I did 30 seconds, I did. Right. And maybe we do a better job. But there are other areas that we can assess as well. Obviously the love languages, but also sexual connection.
Yes. And it's interesting because a lot of couples, in marital therapy, when I talk about sexual connection and intimacy, they downplay it. And they will say things like, well, we kind of lost interest, it's not a big deal. And so when I prescribe to them, hey, this is something that you need to work on. And so when is the last time you guys had intimate connection? So the questions I ask people to kind of ask themselves are you intimate with your partner? Is it something you're enjoying? How often? Are you honest with your partners about your needs? And are your expectations realistic? And again, I think this is an area that people downplay. They don't want to face the issue and, it's no big deal, blah, blah, blah. But then when you say, well, have connection, they say, well, I really don't feel like it anymore.
And as you're gathering that data, I mean, if it's been months, I think we've known couples where it's far beyond months. Right. Again, in those first 6 months, 28 years, things were intense and things were exciting, and we were so focused on the other person, and sexual connection maybe came easy and naturally, but again, as the mundane, as the work schedule, as the stressors of life come in, it can be easy to put those things to the wayside, to be too tired, and yet the biochemical reaction that happens when a man and a woman comes together in that marriage is so important for healthy connection.
Right, and it creates lots of bonding. The oxytocin, the prolactin that is produces a whole lot of bonding in the relationship. And the other part of this too is that I frequently have couples who say, we kind of lost interest. We don't have that drive anymore. And I always tell them the story of this fictitious fat guy who goes camping and eats a ton of food. And after they clean up, he starts eating peanut M&Ms. And his wife says to him, "Are you hungry?" He goes, hungry? You don't have to be hungry to eat. Well, the same thing translates to sex, is that you don't have to have that same sexual drive to engage in sex. And sex is a lot like, for some people, going to church or going to the gym or cleaning the house. If you think about, do I really want to do those things? Some people say no, but almost everybody's glad that they did. Almost everybody's glad that they have a clean house. And I know myself, when I go to the gym, go there a few days, it's like, wow, I'm glad I'm going. I want to come back.
And what's fascinating is sometimes it's awkward to re-engage, to go to the gym when you're feeling pudgy in your clothes.
Right.
It can be awkward to reconnect if it's been a long time, and yet it's worth the effort. It's worth the time. So that's another area where it's super important to be assessing. We also want to look at those threats.
Right.
To a relationship.
Right. And I think it's really important to look at those threats. So some of those questions for yourself, again, have you been flirting with others? And flirting in itself can be innocent. We talk about innocent flirting. Flirting oftentimes is the first step of things not being appropriate. The second one is, have you lied to your partner? Because lies destroy relationships. Everybody lies from time to time, but are you telling serious lies that are threatening to your relationship?
Lies about spending, lies about who you're spending time with, even if it's with a friend, just
Right.
lies about...
Lies about your feelings. Have you been avoiding your partner?
Working late, going to the gym, hanging out with friends.
Hey, I'm going to do a new sport, going to hang out at the bar, whatever. In your marriage, are you feeling lonely? That's definitely something to take into consideration. And then, have you fought and argued without resolution? And couples fight, and fighting can be really, really healthy. Fighting can be a sign of life in the relationship.
Right.
But when you're having that same fight over and over again, and there's no real resolution to it, that can be an indicator that, hey, there's something that needs to be done.
Yeah, because fighting is really inevitable in a relationship. You're just going to have conflict. You're going to not see things the same, and yet there's an energy and a passion that shows a connection. The key is it just a repeated argument without any resolution that's building walls within that relationship? And so you really do. You want to start looking at those things that can be a threat. It is entirely possible to love, dislike your partner at the same time, but you want to be real careful that the love is masculine and more important than the feeling of, I don't like you so much because of a fight.
Yeah. And how are you fighting? Are you throwing stones at each other, calling names, getting physically violent, breaking things? And those are negative fights and are definitely destructive.
And I really like Gottman, brilliant doctors in marriage. They have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yep.
And in fights, they've been able to show consistently as they study couples that if sarcasm is one of the 4 horses, and when sarcasm is being used, contempt is being used, it can be one of the number 1 indicators that this relationship is in jeopardy, that this is a threat. Defensiveness is one of the 4 horsemen, where instead of being able to in any way hear what my partner has to say, it's automatically being defensive. And of course, I'm drawing a blank. What are the other 2?
Well, one of the other predictors is kind of an eye movement, where the person kind of rolls their eye up to the side. Is a definite sign of predictor of divorce in many cases, and it's a sign of contempt.
Yeah, so that avoidance, yeah.
Yep.
So, but they are, just indicators of how, and of course I am drawing a blank. If they come to me, I'll bring them up. But we do need to be aware of that, how we are fighting. I don't need to be saying hurtful things. I don't need to be sarcastic and contemptuous and never taking responsibility.
Right, and intentionally hurtful things, because sometimes fighting is hurtful. Sometimes you do have to say things, you know what, I am really worried about your drinking, and I know it's going to make you angry, but I'm worried about your drinking. I'm worried about the people you're hanging out with. I'm worried about our finances, and can we afford things? And it may have a history of not a real good resolution of that. And some of the topics can be hurtful, but it's how we say it, and can we communicate love at the same time? And that's tough. Sometimes it's artificial, but I do encourage clients and couples to say to each other, I love you, but I am concerned. I love you, but this makes me very angry. And it's an important technique that at the same time you're angry, you can still show love.
And I appreciate you have the 3 rules of criticism, and I think it's super important. It is, if you're in a disagreement and it feels like it's a criticism, is there any truth to this at all? Is there any truth to it at all? Is there anything that I can do about it Is there anything I want to do about it? And I do find sometimes that when the emotions are very high, that those 3 questions can shift me from that very emotional state to a more logical, calmer place where I'm like, okay, he said I'm overspending. Oh, is there any truth to this at all? Well, yeah, I have been spending more than I should. Is there anything I can do about it? Yeah, absolutely. You know, maybe tuck my credit cards and not use them. Is there anything I want to do about it? You know, because I love my partner, absolutely. You know, but I like that because it, like I said, it can sometimes shift it from that highly emotional to a more logical,
Sure.
let's fix this.
Yeah.
So, which is very much where we want to move.
Right.
To
How to fix things.
How to fix things.
Maintenance
yeah.
and repair. So one of the things is, what are those next steps to take? What are those challenges? And part of that is the surprise birthday parties. And surprise birthday parties is a term that I made up that kind of represents those things that we want but lose value in asking for them. Their wants and desires and things along those lines. And if I wanted a surprise birthday party, how do I get one? Well, it's kind of difficult. If I ask for one, it's not a surprise birthday party. So I can drop hints. And if I drop too many hints, it's not really a surprise. But if I don't drop enough hints, I get no party.
Right.
So, and there's lots of things in the areas of love, sex, respect that are surprise birthday parties.
And it's fascinating because I think that becomes part of the assessment is listening more closely to your partner. Looking for those subtle hints, looking for, you know, if you're walking through the grocery store and your wife keeps saying, oh, those flowers smell so pretty, oh, aren't the carnations beautiful, and, you know, they last for a really long time. Did you know that? Those are asking for a surprise birthday party. Those are asking for some flowers
Please
to be
buy
given.
me flowers.
Please buy me flowers, you know. Well, what might be a man dropping hints?
Hot sex. Or something similar to that, you know, hey, things that you want, or and sometimes in those things is those love me damn it statements, which are those statements where they come off very, very negative, but underneath the surface is something positive. So a man may say to his wife, you spend too much time with the kids. We never spend time together. That's a pretty negative way of saying, I want to be with you, I want to spend time with you, I want to have quality time, I want to feel important in the relationship. So when looking at surprise birthday parties, we have to look at those negative messages and see if there's a positive intent underneath it.
And I appreciate that you reference the quality time because I do think oftentimes those love me damn it comments are, you know, you never tell me you love me, you never tell me I'm beautiful, or a woman may say you're always at the golf course, you're never here at home. Underneath that is, like you said, a reference, you know, for the you never tell me you love me, maybe I'm a words of affirmation and I need some words here, but you're always at the golf course could be we don't have any quality time and that's my love language.
Right.
So there is so multifaceted. There's so much information within that one, what can feel like a criticism. But again, like if I could look at that, if you said to me, you know, you're always spending time with your friends and never have time for me, if I could look at that and be, is there any truth to that? You know, is there anything I can do about this? And then if I love you, I should want to do something about that.
Sure.
You know, so I love how it all kinds of starts coming together.
And I think that's really, really important. The other thing about surprise birthday parties is recognizing that unsolicited praise and actions tend to be more meaningful than solicited. So if I walk through the mall and some guy comes up to me and goes, man, I really like that shirt, you know, that's kind of strange. It probably wouldn't happen very often, but it has more meaning to it. Somebody at church says to me, hey, I like your shirt. Or somebody at work, wow, where'd you get that? It's much, much more valuable than saying, hey, what do you think about my shirt? Do you like it? And so we have to look for those little hints of people asking for that unsolicited praise and action.
But I do like that we have as the final one on that list. However, if I'm not getting that need met, if my criticisms that are really love me, damn it, if my hints are not being received, then I have to ask myself, is it more important to have a party, even if it's not a surprise, or to risk not getting a party at all?
Right. And sometimes you have to go for the next best thing. And the next best thing is asking for it. And it's funny, I had a couple one time that there was a magazine article and they wanted their partner to see it and wanted their partner to see it, so they kept leaving it on the floor in the bathroom. And after 25 times, he said, "Hey, did you read that magazine?" "Oh, you're the one who keeps leaving it on the floor? Why?"
I wanted you to read the article.
I wanted you to read the article, but I didn't want to be as forward to ask what the article talked about. I wanted it to kind of be your idea. And so, again, unsolicited praise and actions tend to be much more meaningful, but there's usually hints there. And if the hints don't work, you have to ask more directly.
I'm not afraid if in the middle of a TV show and a commercial comes on and I haven't heard "I love you" enough to say in the middle of the room, "Someone tell me they love me." You know, and I have people say, "Does it have any value?" And since mine is words of affirmation, yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Would it be more meaningful if someone just said, "Hey, Mom, I love you," or "Hey, sweetheart, I love you"? Absolutely. But for me, if I'm just hungry for it, I'm going to ask. Just, you know, and I'm willing to do that. Because I'd rather have a party than no party at all sometimes.
So the important action steps: find ways to show love to your partner in the language they speak. And the first part of it is find a way. Make an assessment of how much time you're doing that sort of stuff. If you're not familiar with the love languages, it's an excellent book to get by Gary Smalley, but it's really making that effort to love and to go out of your way to love. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's natural, but it's really putting forth the effort.
And like, for example, the gifts don't have to be big. The gifts very often can be a single flower. It can be picking up just their favorite coffee or something.
Yeah, or
you
candy
know,
bar or something.
Candy bar, yeah. So it doesn't have to be a big one, but
Right.
absolutely find ways to show love in your partner's language. So you got to know the language.
And then protect your relationship from threats, outside threats, your flirtation, your other relationships that could interfere in that. It could be a work relationship. It could be work itself. It could be lying or anger that you're holding on to that just keeps brewing and brewing.
And under that
Protect
one is a big why. You know, the question has to be asked, why am I doing this? Why am I staying late at work? Why am I being dishonest? Why, you know, am I feeling lonely when I'm in a relationship? And so you got to get underneath the emotion and start looking at the why.
The next step is create intimacy and be willing to take a look at your intimate life and be honest with yourself. And if you are not intimate with your partner in a sexual way, really look at those underlying causes. Usually lack of desire is more than just getting older or other things. There's sometimes a very strong emotional cause or a lack of priority to the relationship.
And yet it is interesting. It's one of those things that if you can go ahead and be intimate despite maybe having all the emotional issues resolved, it can be a bridge builder to help
It definitely can.
resolve the emotional issues. You know?
Stress reliever, bridge builder, and a bonding experience. And oftentimes it is a test of, are we close enough? Do we trust in each other enough? And sometimes the answer is no, but it really brings to light, hey, there are things that are interfering here, and it's more than just passing issues. There's something that we need to take a look at.
Right. So that why question again, what's going on? Why? Why are we having difficulty?
The next one is plan surprise birthday parties. If you want something to take place, plan it. Write it on your calendar. And that surprise birthday party can be something very, very small. It can be part of that planning is keeping your ears open to, why is the house always dirty? Am I the only one who always cleans the house? You know, it seems like that's all I do is clean. Those could all be ways of somebody asking for something, not in the best way, but they're letting you know that, hey, these are some of my wants and desires.
Absolutely. And that's creating mood. It's, you know, if you know your person is acts of service, go ahead and have the dishwasher empty. Go ahead and have the kitchen tidy, because that's going to fill that person's love tank and create a closer connection and may create intimacy.
For sure.
You know, because when my tank is full, I feel closer to you.
Yeah. And then the last one is sometimes you just have to ask directly for what you need. So this is our show for today. Really appreciate you watching. As always, we're looking for new show ideas. And if you have them, please check us out on our Facebook page, Clarkston Lighthouse Guidance, and would look forward to all those exciting information.
Absolutely. We hope this was helpful. Look forward to hearing from you, and thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for watching.
The views expressed in this show are for general educational purposes only and do not constitute professional advice on any subject matter, nor do they necessarily reflect the views or opinions of its guests or of Independence Television. If mental health assistance is needed, please seek professional licensed treatment.